After making over 37,000 cold calls, leading to $12 million in qualified pipeline, resulting in $1 million in closed revenue, I have at last promoted to an account executive today. Today's start of Q4, put your fours up, 2020, after being an SDR for the past 2 years. Everyone says being an SDR is the most important role you'll ever have in your sales career, but I certainly can speak to the difficulty of being in that position, getting rejected, body bagged on the phones, and the repetitive nature of doing the same thing month after month. But I feel like it's really prepared me for my sales career and to begin closing revenue on my own. In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can accelerate your sales career of going from an SDR to AE. It took me around 2 years, so hopefully I can provide some tips that helps you do it in less time. And since I'm now an expert prospector, I'm going to sprinkle in a couple best practice prospecting tips as well to help you guys get those pipeline numbers up in Q4. For those of you that are new to the channel, I'm Trent and we talk everything sales here. YouTube actually just sent me an email and has given me a 1,000 subscriber quota for the end of this year. So make sure to hit that subscribe button below if you like sales or this content, and smash that like button as well. Thanks, guys. The first point we need to cover, guys, is what is the point of an SDR? What do we actually do? So SDR's whole job, and I'm sure it varies between organizations, is to generate quality pipeline that will eventually lead to closed revenue. The more effectively you can generate pipeline and the more meetings you can set, the quicker you're going to be able to promote to account executive, and the more you're probably going to get compensated because you're doing your job effectively. So how do you generate pipeline, you may be asking? So guys, the information I'm going to share today is what I've actually seen being in the front lines. It's not something I've read in a book. It's not something someone's told me. It's something I've experienced day to day for the last 2 years. So I want to talk about my personal experience so it can help you guys learn from that and hopefully not make some of the mistakes I did. So the way my company is structured, I started as an SDR1. You eventually promote to an SDR2. Then you go to an SDR3. And then from SDR3, you can become a mid-level account executive. And essentially each progression up, you have a larger pipeline amount that you're responsible for, and eventually you're tied to closed revenue. So sourcing quality pipeline. So tip number one that I found to be successful. So when I first started, I was one of the worst performers in the organization. I remember I finished my first month. I was one of the worst performers. I didn't even hit my quota, my ramping quota. It was super small. I called my mom and I said, hey, I don't know if I'm cut out for sales. I don't know if this is for me. I'm used to doing well and things. And I just did terrible. And it was pretty demoralizing. So once I worked through some things in my mind, I figured out, okay, in order to get better, since I've never done this before, I just need to try harder. So I started working really hard and I became what is called a volume player. So when I first started, and when you guys are doing your own prospecting, when you become an AE and a higher level, you do less of this because you have additional ecosystem players to bring you things. But when you're first starting and as an SDR, it's a numbers game. So be a volume player, and that's what I did. When I was first starting, I would make between 80 and 100 calls per day. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's super doable assuming you have some of the tools for efficiency. But you'll be super inefficient at first. So you want to continuously put up big numbers, make a lot of calls, make a lot of mistakes, learn from them quick, and you'll start to become more efficient over time. And even if you don't become more efficient and you still are bad, solely by making 100 calls, you'll put yourself in a position to set more meetings. And on top of that, I would send about 15 to 20 net new emails per day. That would start the sequence. So I would email, call, and it takes around 7 to 8 times reaching out to someone before they get back to you. So know that if you make a lot of calls and play volume and you stay persistent over time with those people, you'll eventually start to have things come and trickle in and work in your favor. So you guys hear that and you may be wondering, how do I find people to call? What do I do? So I'm going to talk about this at a high level. There's a lot of different intricacies we could break down into, but when finding people, I'm sure you have sales tools of your own. Me personally, I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Zoom Info quite a bit. When I have this list of 1,000 companies, let's say, I know what my buyer personas are. I know what people and what titles would potentially want my product. So I'm gonna go in LinkedIn Navigator, go to the companies I'm looking for, search for those people, find them. Assuming I find them on LinkedIn Navigator, they're probably at the company, and you wanna take it one step further and look them up in Zoom Info so you can make sure you can find a direct line. If you can't cross-check and ensure the person's there and it's up to date, it's just gonna be a waste of your time to even attempt to call or email that person. So that's a big thing. And when you begin calling and emailing people, a lot of people talk about time zones. When should I reach out to people? So my thoughts on this, and I found it to work in all situations. A lot of people have different opinions on this, but I would always start calling before 8 a.m. local time. So this requires you to wake up a little earlier, get in the office a little earlier than most, but when you start making those calls in the mornings, people are less busy and it's just gonna start your day off right. And then what I found to be the next best call time is 3:30 to 5 p.m. local time. It's towards the end of the day, people are in less meetings, and I've found that you wanna ensure it's fixed every day. Make those calls in the morning, make those calls in the late afternoon. In between, you can take your meetings, do some prospecting, make more calls, but those are the best 2 times to call that I found based on my experience making 37,000 cold calls. The next point, guys, to accelerate your sales career and become more efficient at prospecting is to understand your baseline metrics. So this is something I look at quite a bit. We call them Moneyball metrics. You may have something else, but regardless of your sales position, you're gonna have, there's 4 of them, so follow me on this, guys. There's a lot of numbers here. So it's answer rate. So when you're making 100 calls, what percentage of people answer? The next is set rate. Of those people who answer your phone, how many of them do you set a meeting up with? Third, whenever you set that meeting, show rate. What percentage of the time do they actually show up to the meeting? And fourth, convert rate. When they show up to your meeting, what is the percentage of the time in which that converts to a qualified opportunity leading to pipeline? So in our organization, the baseline expectation is your answer rate's 8%, your set rate's 15%, your show rate, it varies, I'd say 80-90%, that's what it should be at, and your convert rate should be around 90%. So put this in perspective, guys, and follow me in this. I have it written down, so I'm gonna look down a little bit, but this just puts in perspective how hard it is to set meetings and how volume can be your friend. So let's say you make 100 calls. If you make 100 calls and your average answer rate's 8%, you're gonna talk to 8 people. If your set rate's 15%, of those 8 people, you're gonna set 1.2 meetings. If your show rate's around 80%, 0.96 of those 1.2 meetings set will actually show. And if your convert rate is around 90%, of those 0.96 actual meetings that happen, 0.87 of them will actually convert and lead to the outcome you want, which is pipeline. So think about that, guys, and you can start to scale up and say, okay, if I make 1,000 calls and these are my metrics, how many meetings should I expect to set? And you also can look at it from the standpoint, if my set rate's 4%, what if I can raise that to 8%? What's that gonna do to my ability to set up meetings, generate pipeline, and lead to close revenue? So think about that, guys. Look at it. If your company doesn't help you track that, start tracking it on your own. Of course, we know it's hard, guys. That's why I got into sales. It's high risk, high reward. It's gonna be stressful a lot of the time. But the more you continue to be volume, the more you try, the better you're gonna get over time. That's what I've seen across the board with dozens of people I've worked with. And that brings us to the final point. So we're gonna get out of here. I know you guys have those Q4 numbers you gotta start hitting, but the final point is relationships. And I'm not saying networking, that's a loose term, but relationship in the sense of who are the people you're directly aligned to and you work with and you talk with every day. It's important to understand how are they incentivized and what do they want and what's important to them, because the better you can help other people get what they want, the more willing they're gonna be to help you get what you want and reciprocate over time and be an advocate for you if you're an advocate for them. It's really a win-win. So that's what I think has really set me apart in my SDR organization, is making great relationships with my account executives I'm aligned to, meeting with them weekly, understanding what they want, how I can better serve them. And by serving others and doing things for them and making them more successful, by default, it's gonna elevate you and make you more successful. And it's just gonna be a win-win. That's how I carry myself, and that's what I always recommend to other people. So make sure to understand those around you, what they want, and ask yourself, how can you help them get there faster? And that's gonna put you in a great position to succeed over time. If you guys want any deeper explanations of any of the points I made, make sure to jump in the comments below. I'll be down there engaging with you guys, answering any questions, or happy to make videos around anything specific you're interested to know more about. Someone actually reached out to me on LinkedIn the other day and said, hey, I just started a job. I'm doing cold calling. It's really hard. Can you make a video on cold calling, how to get better at it? That's gonna be my next video, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. I also started a weekly sales newsletter called Quarter Life Sales. It's gonna be the first link in my description below. So if you're interested in receiving winning sales strategies, make sure to subscribe to that. It's completely for free. I'll deliver what I'm looking at and top tips right to your inbox, weekly basis. I put a lot of time into it, so I think you guys are gonna get a lot out of it. Anyways, I hope you guys got something from today's video. Let me know how I can help in the comments below, and have a great start to Q4. See you guys.